Anyway, welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Thank you very much.
Steve. So, Steve, tell me what you do.
Yeah, it can be quite complicated to explain what I do. Although I suppose it isn't that complicated. I make videos. I started in about 2014 when I was going to do a marathon. I thought, oh, it'd be good to kind of document this. So I took a camera with me, just a tiny little kind of secret. What they use them in spy camera that you get off those dodgy, silly websites. And so I filmed my run, and then that gave me an idea to call myself Film My Run. So that's been my brand name for 8 years now, and I've basically just done that more and more often. And then race directors started to notice that I was coming to their events and filming them and putting them online, and they weren't bad. You know, I was getting better at editing. I'd been a musician, and I'd edited a lot of live footage of bands and made pop videos. So I had a little bit of knowledge of how to edit footage. So I was not bad at it, and race directors kind of cottoned onto this and said, oh, I got a few race directors contacting me saying, would you like to come and run my race and film it and put it on your channel? So then I got quite a few free race entries from that. I thought, this is good. So I continued to do that, and I've never taken it really seriously until I saw people starting to earn money as YouTubers, and you know, friends like Lloyd, who's there, look. There he is, raking in his YouTube money. Maybe I should take it a bit more seriously. In the last 3 or 4 years, I've started to think maybe this should be more of a business than just a hobby. So I've expanded the business a bit more in terms of I now do live streaming for some events, particularly Mud Crew, but also some other race companies. I turn up with my camera and actually live stream it on their channel. I've done some MCing as well. And occasionally I do social media for some race directors. So I take photographs and video for the duration of an event. So that's all kind of expanded the kind of potential financial income from the business. And then I've also tried to get a bit more professional with my YouTube presence and earning potential and quality production wise of the videos that I do.
Is the streaming side of filming races, have you seen that come on in the last few years, as far as like big race companies taking that on as a thing that they want to offer? You know, because UTMB have been doing it for a number of years. That's it.
Well, UTMB have been doing it for years and doing it very, very well. And honestly, don't know how they get such good quality images. I mean, they do break up sometimes, but such good quality live images from such remote locations. They must be spending thousands on satellites before things like Starlink came along, which I've just purchased. And then, yeah, and Western States have recently, in the last 3 years, they've started live streaming their event. And I've been live streaming the Arc of Attrition in Cornwall, the 100-mile race, for the last 3 years, 2-3 years. So that's expanding. We're growing that every year. Next year is going to be bigger and better than it ever has been. So yeah, and I think the public kind of is demanding more of those things as well. The problem is there's not an awful lot of money in it, because race directors are not rich at the best of times. You have to be UTMB to have that kind of money, and live streaming an event is A, stressful, B, it demands a lot of technology and an awful lot of time. So you can't do it for nothing. Much as I would like to, and I love it so much, I would do a lot of this stuff for nothing, but I do need to earn some money. So I do, you know, you have to make a balance between what you're prepared to do something for and what you know is a race director's financial ability to pay you.
Because Starlink, that's a bit of an investment for you, isn't it? Because that doesn't come cheap, does it?
Well, as kit goes, it's not massively expensive. The kit is about £500 to buy, but if you were going to pay every month, it's about £100 a month. And so I don't do that. There's an option where you can only pay for the month that you're using it. So and I don't have live streaming events every month, 2 or 3 a year. So I pay for that month.
So it's not out of the realms of the race company if they wanted to set out for themselves. It's not an astronomical amount.
No, so if a race company wanted to do it themselves, it's not a huge amount of money. The thing that you have to get right, of course, is the content. It's all very well having the technology to be able to broadcast live and broadcast the content, but it's also having the content to broadcast, because more often than not, a race company will just set up a static camera on the finish line or a static camera at a checkpoint, and that's it. And whilst that does show you what's going on to some degree, it's not a live broadcast. It's not a show, is it?
Not follow.
You need to interview people. You need to find out the story of what's going on and what's happening. So I provide that as well. So I'll interview runners, I'll interview volunteers, staff, I'll interview the race director. I'll ask runners how they're doing as they're coming through the checkpoint or climbing the next hill or whatever. And that creates a narrative, which creates a story, which hopefully creates a show. And that's more than just sticking a camera on the finish line.
The sort of issues you've come up against as far as the technology for doing this over the years, is obviously we talked about Starlink, but before that, with like the Arc of Attrition, what signal issues down there in Cornwall. And
yeah, very difficult. So before Starlink, I had I still have a little box. And so your phone that you have has a chip in it, a GPS chip. Not a GPS chip, what am I talking about? SIM card, thank you. A SIM card. So I have a box, you can put 4 separate SIM cards in. So you have to sign up to 4 different mobile contracts. They can be all the same company or different companies. And the box combines those signals into one strong signal. The problem in Cornwall is there's no signal anywhere. So it doesn't matter how many SIM cards you've got. You can't combine nothing to make something. But there are places where there is a signal. So it's all about prep and going to the coast path and finding where the signals exist, and then setting up and making sure that you're there, so that you have something to broadcast. So that's what we've done the last 2 years prior to this. I've used that box. I have at other events just held my phone and had one signal, and it's okay, but you can tell that it's not a great signal. And that's the other thing about providing a professional service. Can't be just some guy with a phone, because it needs to be of a better quality than that. And anyone can do a live broadcast from their phone. So it does need to, I feel it needs to be a step up from that.
So is this something that you're offering? At first, was it something that you just offered your services for free to go and do this for your own like YouTube channel and everything? But now it's a viable business where you're charging. I think I did some test live streams where I went along and did for free, but it was definitely a business decision to say, I'm going to offer this as a service. And it's still really at its embryonic stage. I've only got 2 companies that I work with every year to broadcast their live events. And I could do one every month, one every week if I had to. But the demand isn't quite there yet, and I haven't necessarily gone out of my way to force demand for it. But with Starlink, we'll see. I'm going to broadcast the next Arc of Attrition in Cornwall in January, with 2 Starlinks and 2 teams of people buddy hopping each other along the course.
and we'll see how that goes. And then I may do a bit more promotion on it, saying to race directors, look, this is what I can give you.
It's interesting because the competition is that a mountain race?
No, it's sponsored by La Sportiva now. It used to be sponsored by Raid Light. Now it's sponsored by La Sportiva, and it's run by a company called Mud Crew in Cornwall.
I was thinking it was a mountain race for some reason.
No, the Spine is an interesting one because they don't do live. What they do is they send teams of people with cameras out onto the course to capture the footage, record it, then bring it back to the base and upload it. And they have regular uploads of pre-recorded content, but they don't do anything live. The only problem with the Spine is I'm a bit nervous about stepping on friends of mine's toes because there's a good company up there who do some really good footage. And I've been working up there for a long time.
I know who you say the name of them.
Well, the reason I didn't say it is because I can't actually remember off the top of my head now. Oh dear.
But I know the company you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm in touch with Will, who was Will Roberts, who was involved in the media team.
Okay.
Because I'm volunteering on the media team this year. Last year I went as just working on one of the checkpoints, but this year I've offered what limited experience and stuff that I can do videography wise, because they've all got stills and they do little bits of video, but they don't have anyone dedicated doing any video following people around. And that was something, that conversation I had with him about the possibility of doing live streaming. But he kind of says that there's a bit of a resistance from the powers that would be at the top to taking on that kind of technology. They initially spoke about having somebody, even just somebody filming at the end, and the race director wasn't there filming people. So do you think there's going to be a time when eventually all races, big races, feel the pressure to start offering this?
I think they already are. Yeah, it's a tough one really, because I kind of, in a way, the Barclay marathons, there's something exciting about not knowing and getting your updates off Twitter, refreshing Twitter and there's something cool about that. And I don't know, because I'm the person who would be destroying that by saying you need to do live streaming, you need to broadcast this event live, and you need to pay me for it. I'm aware that there are people who love the fact that it's all kind of secret and hush hush, and you don't hear about it and you don't see it until.
I don't think it would ruin anything, because that race has been going on for a long time, hasn't it?
It's
not a new thing.
No.
And the massive interest in it in recent years was because someone made a film about it.
Yeah.
So there's been nothing wrong with filming. I mean, who's going to be going out? I mean, because you're taking your life in your hands going on that course, aren't you, at certain times in winter.
Yeah.
They talk about like the checkpoints of where you're supposed to be getting water.
Yeah.
And you get to it, it's just ice.
Yeah.
Nothing there, it's just frozen, literally. But it's called Frozen Head State Park, isn't it? Yeah. Do you think that? Do you think it would take away some of the magic of that race if there was more videography going on there? Or do you think people have got a hunger for it, people have got a thirst for seeing behind the scenes of races?
I'm not afraid of moving forward with technology. I am the first person to be all for new stuff happening, but that does come with a slight caveat. And a sense of we're losing something, but I think you've just got to move forward. You have to keep moving forward, and if that means losing some things that we value from the past, maybe there's an argument for saying, well, so be it. Because if we keep holding on to the stuff from the past, then we'll never progress as a species, if you want to make it a wider thing. So you've always got to move forward. So if that means that in 50 years' time, every ultra running event in the world is live streamed as it's happening with crystal clear 4K or 8K quality footage to a thing in your eye that you can watch while you're driving. Fine. I understand and I appreciate the people who don't want that to happen. They have my sympathy. But I think if I had to fall on one side of the fence, it would be for going for it.
Technology moves on, doesn't it? Like back in the day, you would go and watch a football match with your family or your friends. And that's what you had to do to see that match.
Yeah.
Other than listening to it on the radio at home, you'd have to physically go into that match to watch it. But now you can sit at home and watch it on the big screen TV.
And there was a time when you wouldn't be able to listen to it on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, in 1890, when the first FA Cup match was played, nobody knew about it until it was written in the newspapers. And events hundreds of years before weren't known about until somebody sent a message across the Atlantic Ocean. It took 5 weeks to get there, and everything's much more immediate now, and that will continue. It will become more and more and more immediate. And like I said, I appreciate and understand on the one hand that people don't want that to happen, and they want that they want to keep that. They want to not know about Barclay unless they refresh Twitter. But yeah, I think I reckon that more and more race directors are feeling the pressure to live stream their events, or to be more immediate about how they cover their events, and informing the public, informing crews and supporters of runners. And that's another thing, isn't it? People talk about dot watching. People love dot watching, but do they only love dot watching because that's the only option? To look at your phone or your iPad and see a red dot moving across a map, because that's the only option. If you had a choice of watching a live stream of your runner running through a checkpoint, and then an interview with them on the course, and then watch them cross the finish line on camera, which would you choose? You'd probably choose the live video, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that,
it's a natural progression, isn't it? I know the response we talked earlier about Starlink, and I was over in the States in the summer filming at Western States, and I was on the checkpoint from Roby Point down to the finish line, and that's fine because that gets coverage anyway. But I think the response I spoke to a few people there that have sort of been at the race for years and years and years, gone back every single year to volunteer. They've done the race themselves in the past, and they go back. And I asked them their opinion of whether they liked the fact that there was more access to these remote checkpoints and things like that, places that will never ever have the phone signal. And I was surprised that some of them were no, quite the no.
Oh, they're
quite the
positive
opposite.
about it.
It was positive, yeah, and I didn't expect them because they were so entrenched with this race that they were obsessed with it. Go back every single year, volunteer, very traditional. I assumed that they would be like, oh, it's terrible. You should keep it the way it was 30 years ago, and all of that. But they were like, no, it's great. We're seeing the places now on camera that we only saw when we ran the race 20 years ago and ran through that point. And, unless you went there, hiked to that point and went camping, you would never see that on camera. So I think there is, if you can get people to support it, there will be more of the traditional mindset, with historically, which is the thing that I think like the races like the Spine's up against. You've got, I'm part of the Facebook group for the Spine because we've done, one of the races. And anyone else part of that group, Spine group? They can be quite opinionated with the things that they speak about. If you suggest something to them, sometimes you get shut down immediately by the Spiners. It's their race. It's their opinion is fine on things. So do you think that there's you think there's going to be more of that? People resisting?
Oh,
this
yeah, there
change?
will. Yeah, of course there will be. When there's any kind of attempt to alter what's been the norm for years in any sphere of life, there are plenty of people who will resist and will resist to their very last breath, and that's fine. But it's probably going to happen, eventually, or it may not, and people will get left behind, and race organisers and race directors will get left behind, and races will die, because they haven't kept up with the times. They may not, but that my impression is that you need to keep moving forward, in your idea, in your philosophy, your ideas, your technology. Races just can't stay the same forever, or they will lose punters.
Die eventually. Anyone got any questions that they've been dying to ask?
I just wondered why everybody want to watch a video of the race. There's a video of me crossing the line of the London Marathon.
Yeah, you only need to see it once.
The only interesting thing about it is, I think,
I think there are lots.
I can't think of anything more boring than watching a running.
Oh, I can show you more boring things than that. Yeah, right. So you've got,
my view is the interesting thing about running is running, not
yes,
looking at people.
but there are people who don't run, who have runners as relatives and friends. So one thing is watching your runner. So if you are the parent of a runner who's doing their first marathon or their first 100-mile race, you might want to watch your son or daughter run that race. So being able to see it live is, I guess, is interesting. Runners who are going to run a race, for them it's useful. I'm only speaking from the things that people have told me about my website. So what they like is seeing the course, the conditions, the environment of that race before they get there. Now, there's something brilliant about arriving somewhere and not having a clue and just going for it, but other people like to plan. And so seeing what the course is like, how hilly it is, what the views are like, whether the checkpoint staff are lovely, whether there's people like to see beforehand. So having a video of that is good for some people. And then on the other hand, just making a story. Stories can be told about anything. And if you're a good storyteller, the story of a race can be interesting as a thing to look at. Yes.
It needs to be working on.
Yes. Well, there are some, myself withstanding, there are some very good filmmakers who are making films about running, and they will choose a runner in that race and tell the story of that runner and their history prior to being a runner, their achievements, the downsides of their life. And follow the race and the ups and downs in the race, and then the glory or the disaster at the end of the race. And that is an emotional journey that you can, if you do it well, that you can take the viewer on and leave them at the end feeling that sense of having been on the journey themselves whilst watching it. And that for, you know what you felt like when you've watched an emotional film of any. It's fine. Like tears roll down your face, or you laugh out loud with joy, or you feel a great sense of satisfaction at something that has made you.
If you're producing videos of that quality, and I can see that would be a lot better than
So there are various reasons why somebody might be interested in a running race being filmed.
You've also got people who are genuine fans of ultra running as well, or running of any description, and view it.
I've never understood.
Well, is there anything that you're a fan of that you would watch on a sport that you watch? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's probably all not interesting then. But you've got, I met a chap at the States who he had only just started running that year, but he'd been following that race for years and years and years. And he described it as being like people in America are obsessed with like a baseball team. They will know all of the players in that team. They will know all of the results, all that kind of thing. And they are a fan of that sport. You've got people who are fans of ultra running or fans of a race, and they will know every single detail. And he reeled off to me.
That's a bit like transport.
We're very sad people.
Exactly, yeah, it attracts a certain demographic. Well, he could list, he was new to ultra running, but he could list all of these pros, all the people, and he gave me all of these stats of these people that I was with them, I was filming them. I knew that they were good runners, but I didn't know, he knew absolutely every detail about them, what they've done that year, what races they've won, how they've got to be in that race. And he was a true fan of ultra running. So for him to have the ability to watch that race from start to finish, he was obsessed with it. And there's many more people around the world that are the same as that. They absolutely love, even if they haven't got anybody in that race that they want to see crossing the line or going through a checkpoint, they'll still sit there and watch a race of 30 hours over a weekend and watch the live stream of that race just because they love that sport and they love that race.
I'll tell you something even
I
more.
would have thought there were so many people like that who can market.
You'd be surprised.
It's great. Ultra running as a sport is growing enormously. I'll tell you some of the jobs. I am employed by an online sports fitness company called Zwift, who a lot of people know for cycling, but I'm employed by them to do running on a treadmill. And they pay me, get this, they pay me to run on the treadmill with a camera in front and live stream me running on a treadmill. And I'll tell you, not many, but some people actually watch it. They actually watch. So
Horses for courses.
Horses for courses,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. What you're into, yeah. Whatever floats your boat, as Dad used to say. Any other questions?
Because it's kind of related to the dot watching and that sort of thing. And just wondering, because this is kind of like, the more advanced version of that. And I saw a thread of mine with She Races, which is the like kind of a mommy group for women's quality and races. And there's some concern about having a publicly available dot and with women making variable areas at night. And that data being available to many people. Yeah, I'm just wondering what's the thinking about how do you do this in the same manner and still make it entertaining for people and have who are fans and stuff being able to kind of join in. I hadn't really thought about that before, but I saw that.
No, I hadn't really thought about it. But I was having a conversation with somebody today about a race called Race from the Meridian, where you start at the Meridian in the centre of the UK, which I can't remember the name of now.
Is it called a village called Meridian?
Is it called Meridian? Anyway, okay, well you start there and you can go in any direction you want. Is it 24 hours? You've got to get as far as you can in 24 hours away from the centre point as the crow flies. But there's no support. You have to make your own routes. You cannot, if you want to sleep, you're not allowed to, is it that risk? You're not allowed to book you can't book a hotel to go to sleep, and you have to sleep rough if you're going to sleep. And
you're disqualified if your dot stops moving.
Yeah, I can't remember how long, but various, and it's run by a notoriously hardline race director who likes to make people suffer. And the lady I was talking to who done it, she said she obviously she is running on roads in the middle of the night on her own. It's not like a normal race where you've got other runners in front and behind you. She's just on her own in the middle of nowhere. Granted, she has a tracker, but we're not aware. I mean, there may be a risk assessment done by the race director, but there likely probably isn't. You know, what would happen if she was abducted or something happened to her?
She'd get disqualified for adoption.
She'd probably get disqualified. She'd get disqualified. But yeah, no, it's absolutely very.
The trackers have SOS. They have a button on them, don't they? The trackers, to if you hit it, that's your SOS, and it sends a signal, and they will get in touch with you. And you're obviously supposed to have a means of contact with the race director as well.
And in any normal race, yeah, you do. You know, depending on how many runners, how many runners there are and how long the race is, there are always other runners around. Usually, always
apart from
runners.
the one that you've just described.
Apart from the one I've just described. Yeah, so trackers, other runners around, support crew, telephone numbers on your race bib, all your details. Obviously, the usual things about letting. I mean, I let people know when I'm going out, where I'm going. You know, tell my wife what time I'm expected to be back and how long I'm going to run for. But it's it's a really valid.
I was thinking with a tradition, not that race, excluded, a traditional ultra or trail run. The checkpoint teams. I was at a race last weekend in the Peak District, and I was with it, so I was doing some filming. But I was with the support crew. They were literally, they were sweeping at the end of the race, making sure that everyone had gone through. There was checklists, making sure that everybody was there. They were going ahead on the course, watching people come through. I don't think that any of them would have said that, even though they were, running across the moors of the Peak District, going across, fields of bogs. There isn't really any point where, in that kind of race, where anyone would feel, they would feel like they're on the road at certain points, being out there, knowing that there's somebody behind them sweeping. So if they're slow, there's also someone within range of them. I think they keep themselves like sort of like 100 feet away from them, making sure they're going through the checkpoints and everything. So, but it's a unique thing that you raise.
What were the responses?
I think people were suggesting that because you weren't allowed to run with anyone who's not registered for the race, that actually should be allowed to basically some of the suggestions, or making the dog watching at night not public, just turning it off for a bit and then go back.
Yeah, and so there could be things like, I mean, this is a more and more of an issue. People are starting to be aware of it now and thinking about it more and more. Basically, because one of the main drivers is encouraging female participation in ultra running, and so making it safe is of paramount importance, I would have thought. And I've lost my train of thought now, but yeah. People like Centurion running down on the south coast in Sussex, where I come from, are certainly trying to help with that. And having the dot as a choice that you can make when you're signing up for a race, whether you want it to be public or not, is an option. And certainly relenting on the hard line of not having anyone run with you. If it encourages women to take part in races where they're going to be out for hours on end in the dark in remote areas, or even in towns, actually, which might probably more dangerous through a town in the middle of the night rather than on the coast path in Cornwall or wherever.
I've heard a few people say that before, that they felt more in a dangerous situation with ultras that have gone through city centres.
Yes, Reading city centre at 2 o'clock in the morning on the Thames Path 100 is not somewhere you want to be, really, particularly. Whereas
I was supposed to be talking at 4 o'clock.
I think everything has ran over. Are you Chris, are you? It was supposed to be me interviewing you. It's me interviewing you.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
Take care. It's time for sport.
That's fine.
It's time for my
Unless
bed.
anyone else got any more questions, anything they're dying to ask about dot watching and video.
Sorry? I am working on it. Yeah, many people have suggested it.
He'll tell you where you can sign up later.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers.